In order to remove the rear leaf springs, you have to support the rear axle. So under here I have just a rubber grommet, and I've jacked up right underneath the rear differential. Not too much. I'm not taking the weight off of the jack stands, just enough so that it's not going to fall any further when I start removing these components here on the rear springs. So I'll just kind of hold it up there. I'll probably get some blocks of wood and support each side of the rear axle to just make sure that it doesn't fall at all. Okay, after removing or bracing the rear axle, the next step is to remove the shock. Actually, my car has been retrofitted with the aftermarket shock, and it does not have the lever shock anymore, so my uninstall or my job is going to be a little different than yours possibly. So what I've done here is put a wrench on the other side to hold it, and then use a breaker bar to get the two nuts off. After removing the top two nuts, just loosen up this bottom nut that holds the shock to the spring assembly, and once that's removed you'll be able to take the shock out. Okay, now the next step is to remove the strap. This strap is held in by a bolt and nut combo. Mine were 1/2 inch, although I think my bottom one was replaced because it was a 14 millimeter, so don't listen to that, but the top one was held in there with a 1/2 inch. And then you can remove the strap. And probably a good idea to get a new strap. If you can see, mine here is starting to deteriorate, and if I bend it, there's a lot of cracks in this strap, so I'm just going to replace it. They're pretty cheap, so if you're going to replace this strap, don't forget this sleeve that's in the middle. You can take that out. So I don't know if the new one's going to come with that, so I'll remove it and I'll set it aside for later just in case. Okay, the next step is to remove the 4 nuts that can hold the U-bolts onto the spring assembly. These are 9/16. As you get the last bolt out, loosen them evenly. Just so loosen a few threads worth on each of the bolts, and then just go around in a nice pattern. And that way, because the spring is going to have tension in it, so it's going to lower itself down. Then once you get the last bolt off, it'll probably pop out a little bit and separate itself from the U-bolt assembly. So watch your fingers and make sure you're not you don't have anything in the way of any of these pieces. Okay, once you get all that removed, you can take it all apart and set it aside. And the next step is to come up here on the back of the vehicle and remove the shackle plate assembly, which is right here. So I'll take off these 2 nuts. There's 2 nuts up here. 1, 2. And then the back of the spring will be able to lower down. Okay, once you get the 2 nuts off, they're 9/16 nuts. This plate can be removed, and then you'll have to hold up on the spring, obviously, to remove some pressure from it. But then you can push these two bolts through. One's up here in the body, and then the other one's down here. And I'm going to need 2 hands to do that, so I'm going to stop recording. Okay, once the rear assembly is removed from up there, and this pin, shackle plate, and the rubber bushings you can remove from the body, and then the next step is to remove the front nut right here, and that's a 11/16, and then you can take out this bolt and then drop down the front of the spring. That's all there is to it. Now all the parts to the rear suspension are removed, and you can go about refurbishing them. See my other video on how to take apart the leaf springs and refurbish those. You can check that video out if you're interested, and I hope you enjoyed this one.